everybody, it's Spencer. I just wanted to talk about today's partner who is helping us produce shows all through the classic season, and it's Join Cycling. Join is the #1 cycling tool that sets you up with dynamic and flexible training plans based on your goal, availability, and training history. All you have to do is go download the Join Cycling app, and you can get a month free if you're a Beyond the Peloton listener at join.cc/campaign/beyond-the-peloton, or just follow the link in the show notes and you'll get 30 days of the app for free. It's a fantastic app. I've been using it to help get myself in shape for the summer season. All you have to do is enter your current fitness, what you want to achieve, and how long in the future you want to achieve it, and Join will auto-generate workouts for you every day, and they'll do running or cycling. So if you say, well, I'm traveling, I travel a lot for the show, for the newsletter, and all I have to do is say, well, I don't have time for a ride, just give me a 30-minute run, and it will just go back into the back end, crunch some numbers, throw me a 30-minute run workout. I'm also notoriously bad with coaches. I don't respond to authority well, but the Join training plans are easy for me to follow, and I feel like I'm getting a lot out of it. Enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Vance, from the Choose a Hard Way podcast and newsletter. He has an announcement for us about a new venture he is starting, and then we'll be talking about Lievge-Bastogne-Lievge, which happened probably almost a week ago at this point, but we're breaking it down. We are not first, but we are going to, and we're not going to be that in depth either, but we will give some interesting takes. And then what's going on at Tour of Romandy, and then a little bit of maybe a little bit about our own riding journey before we get into Giro d'Italia season. But Andrew, do you want to plug anything before we get going?
Yeah, Spencer, I think some of the most exciting news that we've come across in the past 24 hours is, of course, the announcement of, is it Maui Gravel? Is that what it's called?
Maui Gravel, yeah. Wait, Aloha Gravel. That's what it's called.
Aloha Gravel. I'm wondering if it's taking place on the private ranch where Jurassic Park was filmed, is it?
No, so that ranch is on Kauai.
Yeah.
And I only know this because I was like very excited to go to this ranch.
Yes.
And I'm pumped, right? I'm going. I look it up. I'm showing up. No, there's no tours. Like, what? Is it just like the curse of Hawaii a lot of times is we will not get into like how the Hawaiian Islands were split up between basically 5 people owning all the private property. But really there's these big ranches, old ranches, like families that have owned it for hundreds of years. And they just like sit on the land and you can't go on the land and recreate. So I actually did catch my eye when I saw Aloha Gravel because it is on a private, like one of the original missionary families, like they own a West Maui plot of land. And I believe that's where the gravel ride is. Not a lot of gravel in Maui because if you have gravel there, there's probably mud a lot. So they pave a lot of the road. So it really stuck out to me. This popped up.
Yeah, same. Mountain Bike Magazine, if you remember that, it was a subsidiary of Rodale's Bicycling. I was a contributing editor in the early 2000s, and I pitched and then went on a travel experience to go ride the Hawaiian Islands at one point, and I would be curious about going back. And that event I saw is sponsored by my bike sponsor, Lauf. I'm on the Utald and the Sigla. I think in a future episode, it might be interesting for us to kind of talk about our experiences with our new gravel bikes. That might be kind of fun. There's a lot going on there, but Lauf I saw as a sponsor of that event. So I think maybe I need to reach out to my partners in Iceland, and you could talk to your people in Hawaii. Potentially we could make something happen. So that's some of the side action going on behind the scenes. The big announcement, of course, I know that many of you follow me on LinkedIn, the world's most prominent and best social network. People love to spend time. If you happened to be there yesterday, you saw the exciting Hello World post about news that you've heard here before on Beyond the Peloton. So look, if you are a senior executive, a political leader, or a professional athlete, and I know that we have some world leaders listening. I know we have many professional athletes and numerous senior executives and C-level people in the Beyond the Peloton audience, venture partners, private equity dominators. Going on podcasts is now a critical part of your job. It's a mission critical part of your job. And being a great podcast guest or host, it turns out, Spencer, is actually extremely difficult. You and I have done it hundreds of times. I've worked with a lot of executives to prepare them to go on podcasts, and not everyone is great at it. That's why I started One Real Voice. It's a strategic podcast consultancy, and I coach you to be a great guest or host, or if you're a business brand or person who wants to start a podcast, I help you take a strategic approach to doing that. If you're serious about being great and you want a super premium level of one-on-one service, you can email me at hello@onerealvoice.com or DM me at hardwaypod, and I would love to work with you. And Spencer, I love to work with you. So let's get down to business and get into gravel. I know that we've got a lot on the agenda today. I wanted to start with probably the most important news in the world of professional cycling. And it actually comes from the world of triathlon. And we saw that Cameron Wurf breaks the Ironman bike world record on his Princeton Works wheels. You may have seen me in the comments following that achievement. I told Cameron Wurf, is Matthew van der Poel going to borrow those wheels? He gave me a crying, laughing emoji. He thought it was funny, and then he responded to my comment that that wasn't a joke. I want to find out, and I'm actually have reached out to Cameron. I'd like to talk to him. Spencer, I saw that Cameron's fueling strategy was he actually filled a 600 milliliter bottle with gels, which sounds like maybe the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of consuming while riding a bike. And he was doing more than 200 grams of carbs per hour. How long is it before we see people intravenously mainlining gel?
It's more. Well, I think the no needle policy would preclude this. This is disgusting and should be illegal in every country. But it kind of makes sense, actually. And I'm surprised it took this long to happen, because think about the gel, like the ritual of that. It's very inefficient. Sometimes you don't take it because you're like, well, I'm going to rip this gel open. What if I can't get it open?
Yeah.
It's like, just put it it should be in a bottle. This makes a lot of sense. And then people might ask, why are you talking about triathlon? I thought this was a cycling podcast. Someone was asking me, like, who's fast in Boulder these days? It's like, first of all, I don't ride 15 hours a day, and I don't ride at like, it's like the fast people, they roll out of bed around 10 a.m. They're riding 11 to 7, but that's just not my jam anymore. So I don't know. I don't see them. But you know who's flying by me regularly on rides, like to the point where I'm startled by their speed? It's triathletes, like these top triathletes, like Taylor Knibb. Like, they are getting so fast. We need to have like a congressional committee on, are they too fast on bikes? Like, I think these top triathletes might be faster. I mean, maybe not like the top, like maybe Matthew van der Poel, if you really let him work at it, he could do a faster bike leg. But some of these guys and girls and gals and theys and thems are getting so fast on these bikes. We need to do something about it. It's out of control. But I thought that was super interesting. I think this will break containment and be like the way people consume gels within a year in professional cycling.
Yeah, Spencer, I don't know about you, but I remember back in I had a very short run at the road in the early 2000s. And one of the things that I did is I had a flask of maple syrup, and I would take it in like the last 10 to 15 minutes of a race. I also would always take a gel, maybe like 20 minutes into a race. Same thing when I was racing cyclocross in the Bay Area. I would always take gels, and people would look at me like they're like, what are you doing? You're insane. This race is less than an hour. And in cyclocross, people weren't even taking in fluid. That was apostasy. You would be excommunicated if you were seen doing anything. You're just supposed to be like dry as a piece of beef jerky with no sugar.
I got DQ'd from a cross race once for taking a bottle, which I think you're not supposed to do, but people are taking like freaking bacon hand ups. It's like, why can't I take a bottle hand up? What's the problem here? But yeah, I think they were just a goss that I would try to consume water during an hour-long, borderline anaerobic effort. So, yeah, why wouldn't you be drinking or consuming food? That actually makes a lot of sense now that you mention it.
Yeah, in California, cross races often are taking place when it's like
Yeah,
90
it's
degrees as well.
95.
It's like
Yeah.
you're not in Belgium. I had a bottle cage on my bike. People are like, "What's wrong with you? You're
It's the
sick.
same thing
You're
in
sick."
Colorado where cross season is potentially not the hottest, but the driest part of the year. It's just like it's always like 80-degree October day. Hasn't rained in a month. And it's a beautiful time of year, but the people, yeah, think that they're in Belgium and they're getting their drinks in via the mud spraying into their face, and that's not happening usually.
Yeah, maybe not the best thing. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. What's on your mind? On the top of your mind right now?
Well, I wanted to talk about Lievge-Bastogne-Lievge, get a few things off my chest, but we don't need to talk about it right now. I do want a gravel check-in from you. I was thinking, man, it's been a little quite quiet on the road front, and then it's because the troops are amassing at the battlefront. You know, it's we're getting into a big time time of year. But just quick Lievge-Bastogne-Lievge thoughts so I can eject it from my brain forever. And I don't want to spoil anything. I was on someone's podcast recently, another podcast being interviewed, and they know a lot about like 2010s era classics,
Mhm.
and they were very excited to like jam about it. Listener of this show, I loved being on your show. I don't want to spoil it. I don't know if it's public information, but I was thinking after the show, I was like, I don't know how much like positive feelings I have about the 2010s. I was like investigating my own emotions, and I don't know if I look back that fondly on them. I had a lot of I did not enjoy the tour. I really did not enjoy the Team Sky years. And then the classics, it just always felt like, there was a couple like you had Cancellara, you had Boonen, but you kind of at the end of those guys. Like they were
Right.
Boonen was great in the early 2010s. And then we went into a phase that I don't think I really like that much. And one of the reasons I don't think I like it, like Bob Youngles winning Liège, it's like, I don't know if that does anything for me because
Mm.
it's like we were eating out of trash cans and then now we're eating Michelin 3 stars every night. And then we're often complaining about it. We're like, Remco versus Tadej. That's boring. Where's Vanderpool? It's like we are getting such a treat every week. I don't want to hear anyone complaining or nostalgic about the times when you could noodle off the front at 3 watts per kilo and win Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but Andy Schleck, remember, like, I feel like he wasn't even riding hard, and he was like off the front, like, "Oh, I just won Liège-Bastogne-Liège." That's not going to cut it in today's cycling, okay? Because what we saw was a complete evisceration of the field. UAE on the front for like 6 hours, and it kind of makes sense. It's just like, hey, let's load up the kgs in everyone's legs, so then when Tadej goes on hard climb, no one can follow him. Someone in the comments on Beyond the Peloton newsletter was like, hey, doesn't that help everybody because they can just sit in the wheels and they're also getting the benefit? Well, yes, and the strategy only works if you have the strongest rider because you're loading up fatigue into everyone's legs. Because if they do La Redoute fresh, maybe Pogacar doesn't drop everybody because everyone's very good. Everyone has a lot of explosion. But if you load up 5.5 hours of zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 riding into their legs, then they can't follow him because he is the best. And that's the only reason the strategy works. I want to make that clear. Don't have your boys on the group ride set a hard pace if you're not the fastest one because you're just going to drop yourself. But you might think, well, that's boring. He's just soloing to every win. In theory, we did get some Remco battles, but I also like to see Pogacar just crushing everyone at Liège because I couldn't believe the conversation was happening in like high journalism circles of, is this guy washed? He got second, gets second at Roubaix. He gets second at Amstel. What's going on with him? It's like, well, that's like an incredibly hard feat. Almost no one has ever done that to get second in their first Roubaix, by the way, and then back it up, get second and get an Amstel. Almost impossible to do that. And then kind of put Remco in his place on Wednesday. And then outside of Pogacar's, like, did you know he's like in his last, I think it's his last 16 monument finishes. He's not finished worse than 5th. That's unbelievable. But I thought the big story outside of Pogacar winning and looking awesome, Ben Healy getting a well-deserved 3rd. I was very happy to see him finally get a podium. The boy needed that. And then 2nd place going to Giulio Ciccone, which I did not expect. That was also impressive. But Remco Evenepoel, I mean, do you have thoughts about this? He looked bored. He looked disinterested. He must have not been like on an amazing day. He kind of, but he's like fingers in the nose, mouth, not even mouth breathing, just out for a ride. Isn't position going into La Redoute. I guess he doesn't have the legs. He's kind of going hard over La Redoute. It's like, okay, now I'm going to go hard. I'm going into Remco zoom mode. And then can't close the gap, goes to the back, and then gets dropped, and then pulls over off the side of the road so that the cameras can't film him getting dropped. Andrew, this was a man just a week earlier saying, I don't care that Scamoza won. I could have won that race. I should have won that race. And then to think that it was only 9 days before that we saw the peacock screaming through the fields of the Ardennes at Brabantse-Pijl, not dropping, but out sprinting Wout van Aert. It's hard to believe that that's the same person. And I'm not fully sure what happened there. Like you don't see capitulations like that from top stars that often. And if you do see them fail, get beat, like think of Julian Alaphilippe. When he gets dropped, you know he's getting dropped. Like the mouth is open. He's in pain. I don't know if I've ever seen a star just like easy pedal get dropped as often as Remco. Like, what do you think is going on there?
Spencer, so much to dig into here. I'm going to get to Remco in 1 second. You mentioned Andy Schleck, and I know that privately we've been having a discussion about how mind-blowing it is that Andy Schleck is younger than Geraint Thomas.
Well, I think
he's 39.
And Geraint Thomas is 40. Wait, he might only be 38, but they're essentially the same age.
Hold on. I think Geraint Thomas is 40. Let me double check this. Oh, you're correct. All right. I'm sorry. You're right.
I only know this because I just checked this like 2 days ago. But yes, that is mind-blowing. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. And why did Andy leave the sport? Can we talk about it?
I think he didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Did he have a doping positive? I don't want to get sued by insinuating he did, or was that his brother? That was his brother, right? And Andy won a tour because Contador tested positive, something like that.
Yeah, it was a different era. We would have to go back into the archives, and we'll get some more details about that.
I will say I talked to a former director of his who described him as maybe the most talented cyclist of all time. And
wow.
That sounds like a bold claim, but he enjoyed training so little that you can like connect the dots and like, I don't want to say he wasn't doing anything, but he might have not been doing anything and won a monument and won a Tour de France. Yeah. Basically off the couch. That's how talented he was. And that's probably why he's not still racing.
Yeah. I think there's also something interesting to explore there because his father, Johnny Schleck, was a former pro cyclist. He raced the Tour de France and yeah, he finished in the top 20 twice. I just like, there's this whole thread in my mind around legacy riders.
Legacy of legs.
And and the pro peloton. And I mean, we've seen that Adrie van der Poel, Mathieu van der Poel, and so on. Getting back to Remco though, this has definitely been on my mind. It's actually something I've been thinking about a lot in relation to One Real Voice, my new podcast strategy and coaching service. And one of the things I think about when I think about Remco is presence is performance, and that you are your attention, and wherever your attention takes you, that's what's going to happen. And I think that most people probably didn't go through the trouble of translating Remco's recent strange Apple Notes 500-word Instagram post, but we did. And what's going on is there's some bizarre feud between a Belgian TV star who looks like
this guy. Do you remember this guy's name?
I don't know.
It's something VG or something.
Yeah, he's quite famous and quite controversial in Belgium. He's been married several times, which that's fine. Some people end up getting married several times. One of his marriages ended because he was doing a live TV spot from a hotel room, and a woman's feet and legs were visible in the background, and they were not the feet and legs of his wife. And apparently, I haven't seen the clip, but apparently he tried to move a coffee cup so that it would have, it was a perspective trick to try to cover up the human that was in the background. maybe not the brightest star in the firmament. He also, Spencer, this gentleman, is a co-host with Tom Boonen of a cycling news segment in
Super
Belgium.
popular
Yeah.
podcast, kind of like video in-person podcast.
Yeah. And this is, hold on to this thought as I go down this rabbit hole, because I want to come back to it when we talk about Demi Vollering, Lada Kopecky, and some of the things going on in pro racing and some of the emotional and psychological challenges these racers face in countries where cycling is a huge sport and is getting a
Andrew,
high degree of. Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you.
Let's do it.
Your Rockets are in an Astana sandwich right now.
Okay.
Tour of Turkey, 100 meters to go, uphill finish. Oh, he's not going to do it. Harold Lopez won, but the Rockets almost just beat two Astana riders.
Was it Lucas Kubish?
It's Giovanni Carboni.
Okay.
I believe. Oh, no, never mind. Wout Poels was the other one in the sandwich. He passed Giovanni. Giovanni is now behind.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, man.
Right.
Sorry for interrupted you. I could not believe. I thought I was about to see the Rockets take down Astana, cycling's best pro cycling team.
Wow. Right, if the only thing that could have been better is if Katusha were still in the sport and the Rockets were to defeat Katusha, which were actual rockets.
Putin gets pissed. So,
yeah, an actual manufacturer of rockets.
Finland.
Yeah. Remco. All right. So I've had this long preamble talking about this character on Belgian TV who's he's like one of those, like he's been on Dancing with the Stars. He's also a pro cycling commentator along with Tom Boonen. And yeah, I bet that these guys have a lot of fun when they're out at the disco.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. They make party, right? That's the feeling that I get. They've been...
If I was Boonen's wife, I'd say, no more. Do the show and come home.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. This guy has been going after Remco's wife and saying that she's a gold digger. That's the gist of the post. If I had to be reductive. So yeah, this TV personality, highly controversial past, has been going after Remco and Remco's wife and saying, hey, Remco's wife is a gold digger. You know, if Remco were working with me, and Remco, you should work with me because I could provide better strategic communications counsel than your dad or whoever's talking to you. I would take your phone away also, and I wouldn't have you post these things on Instagram. We would just stick to content about 600 grams of gels and that type of thing. Remco, to me, is highly distractible, and he's very emotional in a way that does not benefit him. Off the bike for sure, and then definitely on the bike. I mean, we saw it when he's been in a breakaway with Pog and he's yelling at him and waving at him to pull through, him pulling to the side of the road in this race when it's just not going his way. These aren't things that you do when you're a professional at his level. He just seems far too emotional, and it's definitely impacting his ability to keep his head in the game. So that's what I see that's going on. It's off the bike stuff, distracting him from being focused and performing. I'm actually I've started keeping a list of predictions for 2025, 2026. And I do think that, Remco is going to continue to perform, and he's going to have probably some stage wins and have some victories this year, but he's just not built to last, Spencer. This guy, I don't think is going to be in the sport that long.
I don't know about, I just don't, maybe he'll be around a long time. I mean, I'm trying not to offend anyone. I don't know, Bob Jungels. When's the last time you thought about Bob Jungels? But it's he's still there. Or Jakob Fuglsang. He's still there. He's getting those checks. I could see Remco being around, but how often is he how long will he be a star? I can't believe, I think you summed it up very well. I think that's exactly what's going on. It's mental stuff. I don't think I've ever seen a big champion like this be so affected, so obviously affected by off the bike stuff. You could watch his post, and then you could have a betting strategy where you bet against him in the next race because he just deflates like a balloon. It's really shocking to see. I can't believe he got third at the Tour. Looking back on it, how did he not? Did they put him in a chamber after every stage where he wasn't like a Faraday cage? He couldn't look at social media.
They had him in a Pelican case. Yeah,
that's unbelievable to me. that happened because, yeah, it seems like he sees something and he just deflates. Like, not even just physically, just his person. Like, he was so big after the first race of the year, so big after Amstel Gold. And then it was like he was like a child by Flesh Malone 3 days later, just he his presence just disappears. I'm not quite sure I've ever seen anything like it. I wasn't on the move after Liège, probably for the best, because those guys they're nice enough and they know riders listen that they won't really put people on blast. But I thought I couldn't believe what they were saying about Remco. Just like, oh, bad day, he'll be better in the future. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's back up here a second. If this was a Lance Armstrong rival, Tour de France rival, and this happened, can you imagine how he would destroy that person mentally? Just like if Jan Ullrich pulled over in a spring classic to avoid being filmed being dropped, oh my God, like that would have been blood in the water for the Postal team. Like, actually, for not even I don't think I've ever seen like a big champion ever do that before. Like, not coming back, not like a Greg LeMond or Chris Froome type. I'm coming back from a terrible injury and I'm just relearning how to ride the bike. This is a guy who just won like a big race, podiumed at a major race, and then is pulling off the road a week later to avoid being filmed being dropped. That's unbelievable. And like, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but is this the behavior of a big champion? You don't see this very often. Like, it's really shocking to the point where I'm surprised people aren't talking about it more. And then to continue this, stage 2 of Romandie, if anyone was watching this, really strange situation, because that was a hard stage, but kind of a rolling stage. Remco attacks, like the final climb is with like 52K to go, something like that. He attacks over the top, I assume to get some bonus seconds, gets them, continues going. His team is like, he has no teammates. He has one teammate left who's hanging on. He's attacking. He's mad people aren't pulling through, but it's like, dude, there's 50 kilometers of flat to race. Like, where are you going? You're not getting away. We're going to chase you. He eventually, like, this maneuver stirs up a counterattack with his teammate, Junior LeCerf, and Carlton Kirby's loving it on the commentary. He's like, oh, they've fooled him. But what he's not mentioning is Leonard Van Etfeldt and Lorenzo Fortunato are in this move. Fortunato goes on to win the race. Van Etfeldt gets 4th. He's now 6 seconds back in the GC from the leader, Alex Baudin. He's ahead of Remco by almost 50 seconds, ahead of Almeida by almost 50 seconds. Leonard and Carlton Kirby's like, well, he's a sprinter. He's not a sprinter at all. He won the Tour of UAE, which has like harder climbs probably than the Tour of Romandie is going to have. So, I mean, I should fact check that, but the Tour of UAE has incredibly hard climbs, like very hard, famously hard climbs. Van Etfeldt's won it, clearly is a good climber, and Remco's attacking for what reason in the middle of stage 2 has now put him in the driver's seat of the GC of Romandie. It's just another one of these things where I'm thinking, I don't think a really top stage racer would do that. Like, you can't imagine Primož Roglič doing that. And I think he kind of did this because he was mad about the social media stuff. And he's like, I got to show everyone that I'm strong again. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm not sure I've ever quite seen a big rider that's so easily bothered and then does things that are so baffling.
Yeah, if I had to sum up Remco, I would say in victory, in defeat, in love, he lives by the gram and he dies by the gram. All we have to do is look back. I mean, remember when he won the Olympic road race. First of all, think about the final 5K of that race when he flatted, and the winning strategy is the correct one, as has been said by someone that you host a podcast with when it comes to bike racing. Remco won, and there's not much higher stress than gunning for the Olympic gold medal and flatting while you're in a solo breakaway. Just think about how bad he lost it, though. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then we get to the finish line of that race, and in the post-race interview, what does he talk about? This supreme achievement, this victory that is going to be with him for a lifetime. No, he talks about how, as he's approaching the finish line, he's thinking about what's going to be the best pose for Instagram. Right? Because he's like, I knew I wanted like this specific shot. I was going to hold my bike this way with the Eiffel Tower in the background because I wanted that photo for Instagram. And hey, you want an Olympic gold medal, man? You can do whatever you want. If that's where your head's at when you're winning an Olympic gold medal, I'm not sure that's the mentality that's going to carry you, for example, to a Tour de France victory.
It's a very good point. Very good point. I mean, it seemed ridiculous at the time. I kind of wrote it off as like, that's just something Remco would say. You're right. If he is that interested and affected, like worshiping of Instagram, what happens when Instagram behaves badly? When Instagram's not nice, then you could see it really bothering him. I was talking to someone who had a good Roubaix finish, and they were saying when they were in the front group at Roubaix, this is not this year, this is in the past, they were thinking about like, wow, like my friends and everyone's watching me do well. How cool is that? And I immediately knew right then, I was like, this person's never going to do better than this. They're never going to win this race because what do you think Pogacar's thinking about when he's in the front group? He's thinking about, I'm going to destroy these people. He's not thinking, wow, my friends back home are watching me in this front group. Like once you're outside the moment, you've lost it. Like you have to be fully in the moment. And the fact that Remco can and is stepping outside the mental moment like that is a huge red flag. I mean, maybe he'll go on to win the Tour and we'll look like idiots, but I'm surprised. I'm shocked he's not getting more. Like, and maybe in Belgium he is, and maybe that's part of the problem. But people just being like even I get too affected by chats, but like the YouTube chats and the pirate feeds, like Remco's gonna win easy. It's like, well, did you not watch Liège? What are you talking about? Like he might just sit up. And I going back to that, I rewatched that Vuelta stage too, where it was 2 years ago, first climb of the day. He's dropped, but not only is he just dropped, he just looks easy. He's just like, I don't really feel like it. Like, I don't feel my best, so I'm not going to try hard. I guess that bothers me on like a spiritual level to the point, just to a point where I can't fully articulate it. Just, I'm not going to give my competition the satisfaction of beating me because I'm beating me. You didn't beat me. I beat me. I didn't try. It's like that type of thing that annoys you in elementary school when someone does, and then he's doing it at the highest level. It drives me insane. I have Remco derangement syndrome.
Think about what Pog is doing while Remco is thinking about Instagram and writing these 500-word posts. I think about, we're only getting a filtered version of this, of course, but when I think about, I don't know, what's Pog doing before a race? What's he doing when he's at home in Monaco, which I also want to come back to. He lives in Monaco. He doesn't live in Slovenia, where he definitely has to be one of, if not the most famous person in the country right now. Tade he's making rap videos. He's working on his dances. Maybe we'll see an Allison Jackson collab this summer. I can't promise anything. But the guy seems tranquilo. He's relaxed. He's chill. He's having a good time.
That ocean.
Yeah. Chopping it up with his teammates.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he's like like Michael Matthews is like his best friend. And they're just like probably hanging out with Carlos Sainz, just like talking about watches. Like their passion, their true passion in life.
Yeah. They're drawing up Pog's first neck tattoo on tracing paper, holding it up, seeing what it's going to look like. Yeah.
In between like discussions about like, wow, South Sudan, like unbelievable. That spiraled out of control so fast. What are we going to do about it? How can we use our platform to help rehouse some of these people?
Exactly. Do you want to talk about Michael Matthews? This seems
yes,
like
we should, because he just won a race yesterday.
I feel like maybe last week I was talking about how often we've seen this guy in the top 5 so far this year, and it felt like his time was coming. His number came up, finally.
His number came up. He got almost to the point where I'm like, was that collusion with Uno X? I mean, well, I guess what else are they going to do? Like, they get second. That's a big result for them. It's like that nice little lead out. It's Eschborn Frankfurt, good little race too. I watched it from like 100K to go, and it's like hard racing out there in the countryside outside of Frankfurt. Harder than you'd think. You're like, oh, this is a World Tour race. It's always a sprint. They're working to be in that front group. Matthews just roasted everybody in downtown DT Frankfurt. I was thinking, when's the last time he has had a very good spring, by the way? So 11th at Liège, which is crazy for a guy like that. 5th at Amstel, 11th, 13th at Flanders, 4th at San Remo. Not bad at all. when's the last time he had a win? I had to go back, not as long as I thought. GP Quebec, where he beat, I believe, Tadej Pogacar. And then he almost won San Remo last year. Not this last occurrence, but the 2024 version of San Remo. And maybe he doesn't win as much as he used to, but it's almost like he's a better rider now. Like, to be competing as everyone gets better the way he is, I think he's 34 years old, might be at the highest level we've ever seen him at. His next race is a race in Switzerland in May, so I assume he's not doing the Giro d'Italia, but I guess he has to go to the Tour with that team because he's the biggest star on that team and has their best chance of, maybe not their best chance, but their best chance of doing well at many Tour stages. So I assume he's going. But yeah, that was a good call by you. He's had a very good spring. He was my wild card for Liège. Didn't quite work out, but no, wild card for Amstel. Didn't quite work out, but it was nice to see him win. I mean, he's been around forever. It's like
34.
34, yeah, and he must have turned pro really early. He's like, seemed like he was a star 12 years ago. Remember, at the Tour where he was all tatted up with Simon Garrett. It was like the Daryl Impey had the yellow jersey. Matthews, they were trading it back and forth between Simon Garrett himself and Daryl Impey. That was 11 years ago at this point.
Yeah. At the age of 34, Spencer, this is making me think about a book I'm reading with my son by the author Ed Yong, kind of a popular science book called Contain Multitudes, the Microbes Within Us and a Grander View of Life. I feel like if Michael Matthews were a battleship, at this point, he would have those microbes growing all over him that crawl along in the biofilm on the hull of the ship and then stop. And then they turn into these funnels with a mouth at the top, and they're just anchored there. That's how long this guy has been in the sport. He's been around a while, and I don't know, maybe he's on that 200 grams of carb per hour Cameron Wurf program.
We glossed over that. That seems like a lot of carbs. I don't know if I would recommend that at home.
Yeah, I have no idea. Anybody out there who has attempted to go above 100 grams of carb per hour, the thing that gets me, Spencer, because you have to do, it's basically 1-to-1 maltodextrin to fructose. And for me, it's the sweetness of the fructose as you start to get in, you go above 100 grams total. It's an overwhelming, disgusting sweetness, and just the mouthfeel and viscosity of it is totally gross. It's very hard to stomach. And for me personally, I need a lot of fluid to digest that volume of carbohydrates. So then it's how am I carrying all this water? Although with triathletes, they've kind of solved the equation. They're now building buttresses out of the middle of the frame to have 6 bottles underneath their chest. It's an interesting thing that they're doing. And we also know triathletes don't hesitate to just piss themselves while riding, which you see sometimes in competitive cycling. Not all that often, though. I don't know how often you've seen that.
I think, yeah, you don't see it very often.
Triathletes, they're all in. They're not coming out of that tuck.
No. The problem is, once you do that, once you break that mental barrier,
where do you stop?
Yeah.
Where does it stop?
Sometimes they can't stop. So maybe it's nice to keep that genie in the bottle. Let's say you don't see it in cycling. I think there's a problem. This is disgusting. But if you were peeing yourself on stage 5 of the Tour, anything you're introducing into your bib shorts,
yeah,
you're just you could have infections, you could have chafing that Tom Boonen had to have surgery for a saddle sore. So it is cycling, especially in long stage races, becomes about preserving the integrity of the chamois and making sure you're not introducing things in there that could give you a sore or infection that could require you to quit the race. So that's probably, you'd also just get a lot of crap. You're in a big group. It's you're going to piss on everybody. They're going to be mad at you. You're going to smell terrible.
Spencer, I was watching one of Lachlan Morton's videos this week, and he and a former World Tour pro who now rides for the Team Amani gravel team did a four stage, or maybe it's not, it was 4 stages mountain bike stage race in Croatia. And they were talking about World Tour life kind of being in this sealed bubble, especially during a grand tour. You only see your wife when she comes up and says hi on the bus. She has to get permission from the DS to enter the bus. It made me, I'm no spoilers here, but it made me start thinking about Severance and thinking about the Grand Tour bubble in particular and pro cycling relative to something like football, the NBA, Premier League, whatever the case may be, where you have your competition, which is a relatively short period of time compared to professional cycling, where it could be 5, 6, 7 hours. Pros in other sports, that ends, they're with the team, but at some point, the day's over, they fly home and see their family. It's quite odd how much time, if you're a pro cyclist, you spend in actual competition, you spend then with your team and you're locked in like an Ibis hotel. I'm wondering if teams had enough wealth. Do they potentially start having, similar to a prison, like family visitation, or your wife gets to stay with you at the hotel instead of Geraint Thomas and Luke Rowe, Would that be an edge or would it be a distraction?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good question,
it's,
actually.
yeah, I've thought about Visma in particular because they really seem very oriented around the psychological health and kind of like the whole human element of high performance. Why is nobody doing this, especially the wealthiest teams? Why has no one tried it?
Well, I mean, I'm such a journalist that I actually observed a visitation time between Tej Benoot and his family on accident. I was just standing around their bus, and it's super uncomfortable. It's weird because you're standing there. There's a lot of people, and then like his wife and kid or partner, and I assume his child, come up, and they're like, it's like this kid's seeing his dad for what's he going to see him for? Like a couple minutes a day out of a month. And you're like, you're right there with them. It's like, this is like too close. It's too intimate. There's no place for them to go. It's an interesting question. I kind of wonder, my secret theory is, do the riders not want more time with their family? Is
Right.
this like, well, I don't want my wife in the hotel because I'm in the zone. Like you almost are like a different
Yeah.
person. And then that's going to mess up your rhythm. I think like Lance had like in the later tours, like 2009, like because he always had his own room because they used to have odd number riders. So someone would have their own room. And so I assume it was just the team leader would always not have a roommate, which would be pretty cool, actually. I'm sure they missed that. And then I think his wife stayed with him like a few times, but I don't know. I'd be curious to ask him, actually. It's like, I wonder if he would say he just preferred the solitude and wanted less time with his family. It is weird, though, that now that you mention it, it's either team bus, which isn't practical to have the family on, even just like illness wise, or just stand out with the public and talk to your family that way. But even if you think of if they had a severance type conjugal visit uh, pod, I guess they would then worry about like illness and sickness and
Totally.
germs coming into the team.
Such a weird sport. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you're going out to work on an oil derrick or something for a month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's harder probably. It's more important. They're getting the real natural resource, which is my entertainment, and that's the thing. They're mining out there on the road. Thank you, guys.
Wattage is a national treasure. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually went to a science fair. They called it a climate fair. I don't know about this woke rebrand of the science fair, but pretty good exhibit where you had to ride on a trainer to power different types of light bulbs. The LED far more energy efficient, as you can imagine. And then it was set up to like, it was like the load trainer. If you've ever ridden one of those where you have to pedal like the wattage required, it's not like you're trying to spin up, and they would have a hair dryer and they would turn on the heat. So it's like you can pedal and it's easy. Turn on the heat, 800 watts minimum to keep those pedals turning over to power the hot hair dryer. So that we need them out there powering the world. And this is how we're going to get into the 22nd century or whatever the next one is. We need them riding around. Andrew, there's one other thing I want to talk about before we start wrapping up. I have a post coming out on this today. I thought, you know what? I'm going to check the relegation rankings because
Oh boy.
wonder what's been going on there. Astana seems to be doing well, as I was just talking about. Two guys in the top two. Tour of Turkey, another stage win. Astana is the second best team in pro cycling. in UCI points, behind only UAE. They are absolutely crushing it, and they are closing in at an alarming rate on the rest of the teams. To the point, and I said on the show, on many shows, I put my reputation on the line. I said they will not pass Cofidis. Cofidis will be in the World Tour next year. Astana will not pass them. The mistake I made is I said Astana will not be in the World Tour because they will not pass Cofidis. I did not take into account that Team Picnic Post-NL would have potentially one of the worst seasons I've ever seen from a team, to the point where they have over 1,000 more points currently than Astana. They are losing ground to Astana at such a rate. Astana could pass them in the relegation rankings in the next 10 days. Like, that's how fast Astana scoring points. And how few Picnic Post-NL's scoring. If you're confused about what that team is, it's because they've done nothing all year. And they used to be called Sunweb. And before that, they were called something else. And there was other names in there. And I frankly forgot this team existed. That's how bad their season has been. I thought that they just were taking a year off, but they're not going to make it. Like, if you just look at their remaining schedule, Astana, I had to scroll like 6 pages to get through the end of their remaining schedule. Picnic Post-NL's like the Tour, Lombardia, the Vuelta. It's like, it's going to be hard to score points at those races. They're going to get relegated. Astana is going to be promoted. This is like the story, the comeback, feel-good story of the season for all those Astana fans out there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rankings right now, and yeah, it is wild. Geez, just looking at Q36.5, they're 3 rungs lower. Geez, what? 1, 2, 3, 5 rungs lower than Astana, and Tudor just above Q36.5. Yeah, it's far out.
And the real like race here is, so you want to be in the top 2 of the teams that aren't promoted. So
yeah,
like Israel and Lotto will be promoted, so they don't matter anymore. And then the big risk is like Uno X. Here, let me go to the season rankings. I was wrong. Astana's 3rd, not 2nd. Little Trek obviously had a great season, so they're up there. So the big thing is like Uno X is 11th in the rankings. They will be in the top 2 second division teams. They will get invited to every race. The other team, and then the real battle is Q36.5 versus Tudor.
right.
One of those teams will miss out on that. One of them will finish 2nd, one will finish 3rd. If you finish 3rd, you get invited to all the one days automatically. If you finish 2nd, you get invited to every race, including the Grand Tours automatically. That's almost as good, if not better, than being in the World Tour. And then the team that will miss out will be like Total Energies, but they almost don't care because they'll get invited to the tour anyway. But then that's where the risk for Picnic is. They're so low, I can't even find them on this ranking. Yeah, they're 22nd. So if Picnic is relegated, they won't have auto invites to any race, one days or Grand Tours. And are they the type of team that has built any good relationships with anyone? I can't imagine they're going to get a wild card invite either, because they're kind of a prickly team. I don't know if they've been going to the mixers, going to the nice meals, wining and dining these Grand Tour promoters to get the invites they need to survive as a team. So it's pretty existential actually for them.
We haven't talked about this. Going back to the beloved Unibet Titama Rockets, they hold their team license in France, Spencer.
Yeah, I just noticed that when they have the French flag next to them.
How about that?
I don't know why they would do that. That's like the most complicated country to have your team license in.
Well, if you want to curry favor with ASO.
That's true. That is a good point. And you pay a lot of, I also wonder, now that I'm looking at their calendar, I wonder if they do a lot of, it's called Coupe de France, like the French Cup races.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if there is a requirement to go to all those races that you have to be registered in France.
They were out there slipping and sliding. They were at all of them.
I like those races.
They're great. Fun. Yeah.
Old school cycling right there. Also, another announcement. Our partner, Join Cycling, is launching, this is relevant to us, launching a 5-week talent challenge open to anyone. You can see where you stack up against pros and compete for a stagiaire spot on Beat UCI's Continental team, with the chance to ride alongside legends like Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert and test yourself against them. all you have to do is sign up for Join Cycling and sign up for this challenge. And if you perform well enough on the app, you're then racing against the world's best talent. I feel like they made this for us, Andrew. You've got to do this.
I'm ready to do it. I mean, you mentioned Mathieu van der Poel. This is perhaps my final point, going back to the Remco conversation. And as I'm reading posts, as I know you and many fans are, from Lada Kopecky, Demi Vollering, other stars, I just think that for continental European pros, there's a massive disadvantage to living in their home country rather than living and training somewhere else. Like Pog is in Monaco. Mathieu van der Poel lives in both Belgium and Spain. He seems to spend a disproportionate amount of time, though, in Spain. When it's probably hard to be away from his Lamborghini that he's borrowed from the Antwerp.
But you say that
Lamborghini
like
dealer.
Belgium and Spain, which is, I guess, I still don't fully understand his relationship to Belgium. But he's Dutch, but he doesn't doesn't live in the Netherlands, I believe. I think his houses are, as you say, Belgium and Spain.
Yeah.
And his grandfather must have been French. I assume his mom's French, because his grandfather was like one of the most famous French riders of all time. I mean, maybe the training just better in Belgium, better cycling access, I guess. But yeah, I'm curious about that. But yeah, he's always he misses the Lambos, but he's in Spain when he's training.
Yeah, and
good setup there.
I guess the counterpoint to that argument is that Instagram and the internet are portable and you can access them anywhere. It just seems, though, that a lot of these cyclists are bearing an undue amount of scrutiny and pressure, because I was actually thinking about this in relation to someone like Nielsen Palace, Sepp Kuss, who are stars in their own right. And, Jason Gay may occasionally, once every 18 to 24 months, write something about them. No one here is particularly paying attention to what they're doing, and they can live in Girona or wherever without any media pressure or scrutiny.
Has to be a huge advantage, right? I was just thinking about that.
Right?
Here, Jonathan Kaplan just put out a newsletter that I was just reading, is writing with what to read. I can't find it. Oh no, Jonathan, resend it. So this caught I've been noticing this happening. The Athletic, have you noticed, is writing about cycling? Jacob Whitehead.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally. He might be British, like a soccer writer, I believe. But
yeah,
he's like, it's shocking, it's jarring to see, frankly. Like,
right.
I'm on the New York Times, and you click over to their non-union athletic site, but you kind of feel like you're still on the Times. And then
if you've paid your 5th or 6th subscription,
that's only your 10th
to access what used to be the sports page.
Genius move, by the way.
Yeah. How about that?
Shut our union sports page down, hire a non-union company, and then charge
very progressive. It's a very progressive move.
It is very capitalistically progressive. But they're writing about cycling. It's like, I almost don't like it. I'm like, no, like, I don't want people reading about this. This is a private situation. Okay, Jacob, if you're an American, the beauty of cycling is you can watch cycling and you don't have to talk about it with people. You just keep it to yourself in a small group of friends in a group chat. But I don't think this is going to have a massive impact on Matteo and Nielsen. But Matteo Jorgensen's getting to the point where a couple things go right for him. As Bradley Wiggins said, the man could win the Tour de France. So things could change for him. But I think you are pulling on a good string. I think, it's very hard to live in the country where you're from for a lot of these riders. But like Lada Kopecky, good example. I'm just looking at the results. I clicked away. But she won Flanders. Good result, obviously. But maybe it's the rise of the super rider on the men's side, where like Van der Poel and Pogacar win everything. So we're like, why aren't Kopecky and Vollering winning everything? Like, what's wrong? But like I would say the secret story, the quiet story of the year on the women's side is, I think we're seeing like a major disruption, a quiet disruption in the order there. Like, I went back through, everyone's like assumes Demi Vollering, she's the highest paid rider, like, famously. I don't know if this is what was worked out, but like €1 million contract, to leave SD Works. And she just doesn't win that often. Like, she hasn't won a one-day race. She's won one in the last 2 years. I don't think she's won a race against the top, let's like call it the top competition, since she won the Tour de France in 2023. But that's not the perception. The perception is that she wins everything. Same thing with Lotte Kopecky, but they've regularly been getting their butts beat by like Puck Peterser, like the up and comers. Like, Puck is 22 years old, mountain biker, cross rider, by the way. And then this new person, Kimberly Lacourt, Paneer. I don't know which one's her maiden name. Lacourt maybe is her maiden name, or maybe that's her new name. She's 29, but she's new to the road because she's a mountain biker, but she just won Lievge-Bastogne-Lievge. Pretty impressive win from a country called Mauritius. She's Mauritian. I don't think I'd ever heard of this country before. It's like it's out in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Africa. You don't see so many top cyclists come from that country. So that caught my eye. But these mountain bikers are taking over. Like, I think that's what's happening in women's cycling. And like, maybe the Tour will roll around. Demi's slow roll pays off and she wins the Tour. But I don't know. I'm now questioning, like, is this not a blip anymore? This is just the new reality that these young riders are strong enough. They can exploit the lack of, let's say, tactical finesse from riders like Demi Vollering, whose move is to get on the front, not attack, but just ride hard on the front and hope you drop everybody. And that worked for a long time, and now that doesn't work. And so now it's harder to win. I'm curious to see what happens at the Tour. She is such a good climber that maybe that tactic will still work at the Tour. But I mean, that was part of the problem last year at the FEMS, where she was like, I'm going to ride hard. And then Kasia Doma was like, I can ride just hard enough that your riding hard strategy doesn't work, and I'm going to win by like 2 seconds. So I don't know. Any thoughts, Andrew? Puck Peterson might be my favorite rider, men or women. I don't know why. I like huge. She kind of rides like a mountain biker on the road, but
Right.
then is just jamming, like moving so fast it doesn't matter. She's anti-aero.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this quite a bit the past 2 or 3 years. It seems like there's a lot of talent over there on the UCI mountain bike World Cup circuit and on the marathon circuit, which is not popular in the United States. Super Euro, though. Big in Europe. There's a lot of talent waiting to come over to the World Tour, I think. And on the women's side, we're finally seeing this happen at greater scale and with greater speed than we're seeing on the road, although there are a few examples on the road as well. We've talked a lot about social media today. I'm just really scratching my head about the pressure that every pro cyclist seems to feel to be a run club leader. I mean, we know that. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll do a separate episode on this, and maybe we'll get some pros on to talk about it. I do wonder if the commercial, I think there's potentially an inverse relationship between the commercial viability of your professional sport on one end of the spectrum and your need to be omnipresent, like Truman Show level social media presence and run club member on the other end of the spectrum. Remco is an exception to this, and maybe young riders just really enjoy telling us about everything on social media. It does seem, though, in pro cycling, if somebody's making 5 or 6 million euros, we know that's just a handful of riders. They tend not to be leading a run club or transitioning into becoming a professional runner. And then, we see it in gravel, women's professional cycling, where the wages are lower. And we've heard pros who've left the sport recently talk about, like, it's a very rough off ramp. There's not a lot of support there. There's not a lot on the men's side either, but it's far worse for women exiting the sport. So I think that we see riders having to do things to cultivate their own streams of income separate from what they're doing as a professional athlete, which is unfortunate because they're exceptionally talented. They're the best in the world, and it'd be great if they could just focus on that. But I wonder if they feel pressure to start a run club or do things more in line with social media trends. And we do see less of that at the World Tour level on the men's side, I think.
There might be something going on where people are receiving information or feedback that running content does really well.
I think the algorithm probably tells them that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw someone, there was a ride, it was like from the French Pyrenees over the Pyrenees all the way to basically the Rock of Gibraltar. Like that was how long this gravel race ride was. It's like that's like thousands of miles.
Midweek ride in Boulder
Yeah,
for the
one of
average
the
executive. Yeah.
you're undertrained if you do that. And so one of these participants does this ride, gets there morning after. What do you think they did? Got to wake up, do an hour-long run for the gram. It's like, oh my, I couldn't believe it. It's like
Yeah.
people like
Just have to
slaves to the the running flywheel on Instagram, I guess.
open the legs up. Yeah.
They're
Get
like
out there
doing
with the
people are
run
doing
club.
hour-long runs and just like, yeah, just shaking the legs out. It's like it's a long run. Like for a professional runner, that's like a healthy run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, this whole we won't get into it here, but this whole industry of convincing amateur people, enthusiasts, they have to train like 25 hours a week when like I follow a lot of cyclists on Strava, young cyclists that aren't so in the public eye, they don't post their rides. A lot of these guys train like 17 to 20 hours a week, and they're training far less than masters riders in Boulder that are trying to do well at the Unbound 100. So much so, Andrew, that I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, the thing I was going to say is on this trend. Well, a couple things on this trend is like you mentioned this about Remco has a YouTube channel where he's like doing off the bike workouts, and you're just like he's wearing like it looks like he's like going to Walmart and just buying stuff off the rack. Like there's no sponsorship situation with his
Right.
athleisure. So maybe running opens you up to that. I did see that I think Wout van Aert like signed a deal with Nike, which almost no one noticed or talked about. But then I was thinking like, why is Nike even doing this? Because a professional athlete was like, oh, they're just trying to block out another brand. I'm like, I don't know if there's any other brands to block out. I don't know if there's brands like rushing to pro cyclists to outfit their off the bike workouts. But I guess running gives you more visibility with your off the bike workouts, and then that's where the real money is. Somehow I don't feel like seems like bikes cost a lot of money, but I guess the real money's made in selling people shorts that sell for $200 that cost you $2 to make.
Oh, maybe not anymore. But yeah.
Could be going up to $250 with those. I mean, you could put 100% tariff on Nike clothes and they'll still have a 7,000% margin.
A lot of runners that I know would like to take the pain, Spencer. I wonder with the Wout thing, there's actually like this big move, which I am suspect of, candidly, around recovery footwear. And I saw Nike recently introduce a shoe with Hyperice, who now Hyperice owns Normatec and a number of other recovery related implements like a percussive massage tool, hot and cold therapy, a bunch of other things. But they make a shoe now that is a recovery shoe. I'm trying one from Roll, which is a Boulder based company. They have recovery slides.
Roll is awesome.
Yeah, they sent me the R9 to check out, which I have to say is one of my absolute favorite recovery tools. I know you use it too, Spencer, but it's like a spring-loaded thing with inline skate wheels. It's almost like foam rolling, but you don't have to get on the ground. And to me, it actually works better. But the shoes, I'm wondering if Nike is maybe they want Wout in the shoes on the bus. Maybe that's the thing.
Not a bad idea. I think your dogs are barking after 21 days of the tour. We are going long. We got to wrap this thing up. Also, one other thing is, I wonder if these mountain bikers, like I saw Puck at a training camp. She was seeing if she was doing like intervals on a climb, and then also in between the intervals doing wheelies, like and trying to hold them for a minute on a climb in between intervals. And so the level of bike handling with these mountain bike crossovers is so much higher than the endemic road cyclist, that I do think they may be introducing just like a level of bike handling and skill that's not previously been in women's cycling, and then they're just putting out a lot less energy during the race to put themselves where they need to be. And then like we've seen on the men's side, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like young cyclists are so much better at bike handling than they used to. I don't know. I don't want to name names, but there's like riders I can think of that came into the sport and were like on Team Sky and could barely ride a bike. But maybe that's not happening so much anymore.
That's really interesting because the thing that I've observed about people entering the sport later in life through vectors, like I'm thinking in particular people who gravitate towards like Pas Normal, Rafa,
Yeah.
cycling clubs, stuff like that, who come in, they're maybe 30, 40. It's awesome. I welcome everyone into the sport. However you get into cycling is okay with me. I do notice, though, that people who come in through the vector of I primarily engage with cycling through like maybe a Rafa club ride, and then it's all about Strava, KOM segment times, and riding Zwift. They tend to be the opposite of what you're describing. So I do think we have a lot of young people coming up in the sport. NICA also, we have probably 10,000 young people that are racing mountain bikes for a couple months out of the year through their high school, which I couldn't have imagined when I was a
No, it's
young
crazy.
person. I think that's incredible. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I think you have a lot of people coming in at midlife and their experience of cycling is go out. I'm going to try to get a fast segment time and I'm on Zwift. And I can think, I'm not going to name names, but I rode with a number of people in the Bay Area who kind of fit that profile. And I can remember being out on like a small group ride with them. And they would literally were like, please don't get within like 6 feet of me. They were so uncomfortable being around other people on bikes, which is part of the sport. And, so people kind of come at it from different angles. I think on the men's world tour side, a really great example of how you can pluck someone out of UCI Mountain Bike World Cup short track is Sam Gaze, who was
Did
the
you say
short.
Matthew Vanderpool? Like,
Yeah, Matthew.
out of
Yeah,
obscurity.
I've had a thought about Matthew Vanderpool. I know we're going long. I want to get to this later. He came into pro road cycling so late. I think he was 24 when he finally stopped doing cyclocross full time. I want to talk in a future episode about like the what if. What if he had crossed
Yeah.
over earlier?
I
Right?
funny. I was just thinking about it because he's won so many monuments.
Yeah.
And you're like, he could have 5 more if he would have come over earlier. Maybe
Yeah.
it doesn't work out as well, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of been all over the map today, and
But on your
that's where cycling takes us.
yeah, we go where the Zwift fake wind blows us. But on that point, yes, the Strava weekender has never been worse at bike handling because it's just like Zwift. I think you said this in Tucson. You're like, I feel like I'm getting a better workout on Zwift. And it's like, yes, to a point, but if you only Zwift, you're going to have problems when you get out on the road.
Yeah, it's
And
weird. Yeah, if I was on Zwift for months and then getting out there around people, it's a very different experience, obviously.
but there's people like there's like a young man, Farm Watts, I don't know his name.
Oh, yeah.
He has like a 470 watt FTP at not a big weight. That's world tour. That's like Tour de France winning power. But I was like digging into like, how is this guy not a professional rider? Because he just doesn't have the bike handling skills.
Right.
So like there is not like 15 years ago, I wonder if that guy gets a contract because it's just like, well, he's so good. But now like everyone seems to come in from mountain biking, all the best riders.
Yeah.
And like think about Pogacar. Like he's winning. The guy's such good bike handler. Like he just wins cross races in the off season because that's fun. That was like unheard of. Only Lance Armstrong was doing that in the 2000s. Or Bradley Wiggins. Remember they were having the FDG would have them do cross training. There's this famous video of like Mark Medio giving an interview and then Wiggins just like eats shit in the background when he's going over the barrier. It's a classic. I'll put it in the show notes. But that like, I think there's like, you have to be at the top now. Like you can't just be like, oh, you have a 400. I still think it's crazy. Someone should probably sign that guy. That is unbelievable. But I don't know, maybe because so many people come in from mountain biking now, cross, that you do have to be like so technically skilled to even be at the front.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Farm Watts, as you said, perfect example. He's in esports. I believe he's an esport national champion. Like I think he's a U.S. national champion.
I would hope so with those numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course he's doing gravel now. And it's exactly what you described, which is it's a different skill set to be at the front of a race, especially when you're riding on marbles and everyone has an Insta 360 camera on a selfie stick off the back of their bike.
Yeah. Or what I've been seeing lately is gravel, like aero gravel setup with an DSLR camera on your back, and then no bike handling skills whatsoever. You're just like,
That is
like
a very popular combination.
Yeah, nothing bad's going to happen here. But Andrew, thank you so much. Do you have anything else to say before we take off?
Check me out, onerealvoice.com. And if you want to talk about anything we've rapped about on the show, I always enjoy hearing from our listeners. You can reach me at HardwayPod on Instagram.
And
I'm going to post all my gold medal winning photos there.
Please do. You in Paris, we should Photoshop that. You with like a One Real Voice banner.
Yeah.
Just your head on Remco. Instead of the bike, it's the banner. Your head on Remco's body. But our next show is going to be a Giro d'Italia preview next week. That's crazy to think about. Mind-blowing.
Here we are again.
Yeah, but don't think about it yet. Don't cheat anyone. Just don't read about anything until we tell you what to think about this race. All right? So sit tight, people. We'll be back next week.